If you're new to Home Assistant and you want to find out the basics of automations, then I'm going to play to you now a video that I made in my courses platform, link in the description, where you can actually see and understand how automations work. If you've got any questions about automations, drop a comment down below. Now, with no further ado, let's roll the video. In this session, we're going to do a basic recap of the automation concepts in Home Assistant. Let's pick a simple automation to think of. Let's look at a movie playing. So we're going to play a movie and we play it after sunset. So we want our lights to turn off automatically. So we create that cinematic effect. So let's think about how this is all broken down in automations. So when a movie starts playing, that's sort of our trigger point. So we can call this a trigger, and a trigger is simply an event. So when a movie starts playing, that's what we call a trigger. And a trigger basically is just an event. And that's the event that Home Assistant is looking for, and is tracking the devices until that happens. So when that happens, the whole automation will start. So now we're being a bit more specific. We're actually saying when a movie starts, but after sunset. So we know that this is one of the actual key conditions. This is called a condition. This is an optional element in Home Assistant. Now this condition evaluates a true or false statement. Well, what does that mean? So a condition can either be true or it can be false. So for the automation to actually do something, it has to be true. So the condition needs to be a true. At the end of the day, it needs to be a true or false state. So the main thing with conditions is that conditions prevent automations from running. So let's look at how that actually works. So we mentioned that this is a test, and the test needs to evaluate either true or false, but test on what? So what can we test in Home Assistant? We can test states, and we can test attributes, and these are mainly devices. So this could be motion sensors, contact sensors, media players, anything really. But not only devices, you can actually also test other things like, for example, time. So you can check what time it is. You can test based on people. And obviously in our example, we can test based on the sun, which is what we are actually looking for. Ding, ding, ding. So this is what we need. So we need to test on the sun. And this is done thanks to an integration in Home Assistant where we have the status of the sun at the current time. So Home Assistant will keep that up to date for us. So depending on our time zone, it will know if it's sunset or not. So once we've had the trigger and the condition evaluates as true, the next step is the action, what actually we want the automation to do. And the action is really focused on doing things. So it's a doing part. So whereas before we had everything, what we were doing is we're just reading states. So we were trying to understand if something happened or waiting for something to happen. In this example, we actually are doing something. So this is the key difference. So an action could do things like in our example, turning lights off. So we want to turn the lights off, and this is going to be our action. And this action will only run if we've had an automation triggering and also if all of the conditions are met at the time that the automation triggers. So if the conditions are met afterwards and the trigger is already gone, it already happened, then nothing's going to happen. So turning the lights off. For this, we are going to be using basically another concept which is called services. And the actual, we're going to also be talking about domains. So lights is a domain. So depending on what domain you are trying to control, so lights, switches, vacuum, whatever you're controlling, blinds for example, that you'll have different services specific for this domain. So if our domain is light, then our services are turn underscore on, turn underscore off, and we also have toggle. So turning on, turning off, they basically work in the same way. So if the lights are already on, the turn on will do nothing, and the turn off will do nothing if the lights are already off. So, but they will obviously work on the reverse. The toggle is just the literal action of you flipping a switch. So the toggle will turn on, off, It will just change the state depending on whatever the state is currently. So it actually simulates that physical switch. So basically this is the concept. So based on the domains, you're gonna have different services that Home Assistant can do. And the service is the way that Home Assistant interacts with your devices. So to recap, when a movie starts playing, that's our trigger event point. After sunset is our conditioner that needs to evaluate as true. We test the conditions, and we can test the conditions on different things like states, attributes, time, people, and the sun, for example, just to name a few. And actions is actually the part when things are happening, with just the doing part. So for example, we're turning off lights, and our domain is light in this example, and we have different services that are linked to the domain. Now, all of this information around services and domains and entities, you can all find them in the developer tools in Home Assistant. If you go to the tab over there, there's one tab for services and there's a tab for states, and you can go and try and understand that before you carry on with the course. But I'll be mentioning this quite a lot during this course. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I'll see you next one. Now that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to find out more about the course, there's a link in the description below. But I'm also going to leave you with another video with Home Assistant concepts right here on YouTube, where you can find out more of the same thing. I hope you enjoyed it. This is Gio from Smart Home Makers. See you in the next one.